All right, let me just pull up my notes here. So this year, what we're looking at is how to deal with the quarterback market in the 2023 fantasy football season. And one of our big problems that we run into, and as I've been reiterating, is we take last year's outcomes and then we try and superimpose it over this year and expect the same outcome. That's, of course, that's not how fantasy works. Because if that's how fantasy works, it would be much more predictable about how to win. So where are we going wrong? Well, last year we should have been overvaluing certain guys like your Mahomes, your Allens, your Hurts, and we should have been moving them up to probably where they're being drafted this year. Last year, I think some of these guys were going around the third, fourth, fifth round. This year, some of these guys are being pushed up to the second round, and to be honest, that's where they've likely always belonged. But if you, in order to win fantasy, you have to be zigging where other people are zagging. You have to be able to risk like safe outcomes for upside because that's how you win. So this year, where at Patrick Mahomes is going, depending on your league, either late second, early third, uh, you have to either go up and get him closer to the first round, or you have to start fading the position in its entirety. Because if you expect them to get him at your ADP, you're playing the same game that everybody else is. That means that your outcome is going to be more or less chance, and we don't want chance. We want to control as much as we can over our destiny. So in this case, with how last year shook out with your Patrick Mahomes, as the QB1 overall, and then obviously Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and everybody has all the stuff to say about them. All the accolades. Jalen Hurts last year is the first guy I want to talk about. He was, I think, wide or quarterback 6 last year. He was very hard for me to evaluate because his risk and his upside were baked into his ADP. So I think he was going about like the 6th round last year, and quarterback 6 was probably his most likely range of or most likely outcome, because if he didn't take the step forward in passing, which he did, and he only stayed a rushing quarterback, his upside was going to be capped. And that's if he didn't just become a turnover machine. So a guy that you're drafting in 6th round as quarterback 6 could easily end the season as quarterback 11. And then that pick is worthless. But you're also getting the upside when you're getting him in the 6th round of the draft, which means that, like, if he finishes at quarterback 3 and you're happy, or for most of the season he's quarterback 1 and you're grinning, like you've underpaid for his value. And that's a really hard guy to evaluate, but that's where he should be going. He should be going in those ranges where the risk and the reward are built into his ADP. Now, if he had been like a round or two later in the draft, he's so much more valuable, because if he busts on you, oh well, like you can throw him away, or you could pick up another quarterback and see how that guy works, and you're not hurting yourself. But like where he was going last year was really hard to evaluate. So this year, like, you look at a Patrick Mahomes, and there just likely is not a lot of room for him to grow within that Kansas City offense, because they're going to be the Kansas City offense, and you're buying his, not upside. You're buying the risk that he has, that he can only go down from the statistics he put up last year, because the Chiefs are just not going to be a bad enough team on defense for him to have to score more points. That's just not how football works. At a certain point, you have to end the game in order to get the W, which means you have to stop doing things like scoring so you could just bleed clock. I mean, ask the Eagles why they didn't win the Super Bowl. So it's the same thing with Josh Allen. There's only so many yards and touchdowns that a guy can put on the field before they just run out of the ability to do what they're doing. And that's part of the same problem with Jalen Hurts. Like, everybody's talking about Jalen Hurts, and they're like, well, if the Eagles offense could take a step forward, it's like, how? They blew everybody else out last year. Their defense is not going to be bad. Even if their defense takes a step back, like, you're losing the rushing ability for Jalen Hurts to become a better passer, and you're losing the passing ability for Jalen Hurts to be a better rusher. There just isn't a lot of upside in him. So when we look at like underdog, where Jalen Hurts is going right after Patrick Mahomes, again, late second, early third, like you're getting what he did last year, period. And then if there's something that happens that is either predictable or unpredictable, you're losing that pick. There's too much risk taking the guys where they're being taken in this year's draft. So So the things that we have to look at are like a Deshaun Watson that I'm just going to say is going in the 8th or ninth round. And Deshaun Watson, I know some people don't like him, whatever, I don't care. The big issue is he's going at quarterback 9, and obviously he has within his range of outcome to be quarterback 1 overall. Well, what happens if he hurts you and he's like quarterback 13, quarterback 14? Well, 8th, ninth round pick like doesn't do anything to you. Like for him to bust doesn't do anything to you. It's Jalen Hurts last year, but with the risk already or with the upside not baked into what he should be, because Deshaun Watson should be all the way up here at quarterback 6, plus or minus, because of his upside to finish as quarterback 1. Like whatever reasons everybody has to say like, oh, he didn't play very well last year. Well, that's fine. But the reality of it is, we know what his range of outcomes is. It's quarterback 3 to quarterback 1. He's done it before, as opposed to say like a Trevor Lawrence. And when we look at a guy like Trevor Lawrence, and he's fine, there just isn't a lot of mobility within the offense, the Jacksonville offense, to get that much better. They're good defense. They're not going to be a bad defense. He can maybe have 400 more passing yards. I mean, look at the numbers that he put up relative to Patrick Mahomes. And even if there's these massive leaps forward for the Kansas City or for the Jacksonville offense, it's like, how much more forward does he need to go in order to compete with what Patrick Mahomes put up last year? That's very difficult. And there's a huge difference between Trevor Lawrence and Patrick Mahomes. Trevor Lawrence has Travis Etienne. Patrick Mahomes has Isaiah Pacheco. And a host of other guys. Like, the offense is going to go through Patrick Mahomes in a way that the Jacksonville Jaguars do not need it to go through when they have the running back room that they have. So moving forward, like the guys that we should be circling in on, and however we build it, because again, we have to sabotage the rosters of our opponents in this case. Even if we go out and get a Patrick Mahomes, we have to look at guys like Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones going as quarterback 14 on Underdog. And I'm going to go down and show you the other one is, if I can find him, Kenny Pickett going at quarterback 24. We have to go out and put these guys on our roster because their range of outcomes is so high that if we're just allowing our opponents to get them either off of waivers or by stashing them late on our bench, we're going to lose. So in this case, like, why we're talking about Kenny Pickett is Daniel Jones. He finished as, I think, quarterback 9 last year. And as you see the difference between Daniel Jones and Josh Allen, if Daniel Jones' rushing abilities just roughly stays where it was, and the Giants' offense was not particularly good last year. That's not to say that they were bad. They just weren't particularly good. So if Daniel Jones essentially just the offense is a little bit better, the passing ability is a little better. The Giants, for more or less, are not winning games in the fourth quarter. They're putting teams away in the second half. Daniel Jones, 3,200 passing yards, can go up to 4,200 yards rather easily. That's not like a huge stretch. That's what, roughly 50 passing yards a game. And the big difference is you see the turnovers between Josh Allen and Daniel Jones, like, or the touchdowns. I don't necessarily think that Daniel Jones is going to get anywhere near 35 touchdowns, but an increase of 10 passing touchdowns, especially with the addition of Waller, is within the range of outcomes. And then you look at the rushing totals, and this is where it gets interesting, is they have very identical passing totals between the two of them last year. So if Daniel Jones is plus or minus the same 700 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns, and even though Josh Allen had some injury issues last year, everything has been looking like the Buffalo Bills are trying to not put the wear and tear on his body. But we get 15 passing yards and 1 touchdown a game for the season for Daniel Jones, and all of a sudden he's Josh Allen. And what are you paying for on Underdog? You're for Daniel Jones, you're paying a guy that's going like 114. You know, like he's going to be non-draftable in a lot of leagues where everybody's snobbish and they're like, I'm only going to take one quarterback. You know, like you're giving up a guy that makes small improvements this year, and he's able to go out and compete with the quarterback 2 overall, and you're getting him almost outside of draftability. And it's the same thing with Kenny Pickett. And it's like, well, why are you bringing up Kenny Pickett? Well, you see Kenny Pickett's going as quarterback 24 overall. And the biggest thing to understand with Kenny Pickett is he didn't start the season as a starter, and he had some injuries, and the Pittsburgh offense was really bad. So when I pick up Kenny Pickett, if I can find him here for you to show him, uh Kenny Pickett, I think he had like 2,400 yards passing last year. I can't find him. Never used Kenny Pickett. Here we go. He had 2,400 yards passing last year, 7 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He rushed 237 yards, 3 touchdowns. Well, this is what we got to understand about Kenny Pickett. He missed about all or part about 5 games on the season. So all of a sudden, just with that a little bit better passing game, he jumps up and he's competitive with quarterback 9, which was Daniel Jones. That's not a big deal. So now we need to be able to get the interceptions to come down. There's no guarantee that's going to occur, but there's no way that the 7 passing touchdowns is going to stay accurate. And there's actual reasons behind why he had such low passing touchdown totals. It's because, well, the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't put him in very good positions to be able to score touchdowns through the air. That's something that improved as the season went on. But again, he missed 5 games and he had 237 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. Granted, I think all 3 touchdowns came in one game, but the reality of it is, if we get just a slight rushing improvement for Kenny Pickett, apples to apples, the games that he missed, all of a sudden he's closer to 500 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns, which makes him very close with just being a 3,200 yard passer and 500 yards rushing and say 6 touchdowns to Daniel Jones, who finished the season as quarterback 9. And Kenny Pickett's going outside the range of draftability in a lot of leagues. And this is a guy that you can just put on your roster and go, well, what's the worst I have? Quarterback 9. Quarterback 9 is not going to win you a fantasy football championship. But you know what it's also not going to do? It's not going to lose you a fantasy football championship. And you've given up nothing to go out and get a Kenny Pickett at the bottom of your roster for the draft. Here he is. Finally found him. You've given up essentially nothing to find this year's Daniel Jones. And this year's Daniel Jones, like I said, isn't going to lose you your draft. He's not going to lose you your fantasy football season. But you gave up nothing. You can go out and you can go attack another position, just like you going out and getting Daniel Jones at the bottom of your draft because of his ADP. And there's a range of outcomes where he's Josh Allen this year. And the biggest thing, and this is me personally, is what my actual strategy is this year, is you look at where's he at? Justin Herbert going at quarterback 7. He can put up numbers that are very similar to Patrick Mahomes because he's done it before. Remember last year, Justin Herbert, the conversation last year between Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert was who was quarterback 1 this year. And some people thought it was going to be Justin Herbert. Well, it wasn't. And now that failure is baked into his ADP, which means I'm getting quarterback 7. Could Justin Herbert disappoint? Sure, he could come in quarterback 9. Well, I can go replace quarterback 9 very easily by drafting Kenny Pickett. Well, is there a range of outcomes where Justin Herbert is the quarterback 1 this year? Absolutely, because all he has to do is throw for 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, and have about 350 yards rushing with 4 touchdowns. That's something that Justin Herbert's done before, but I can get him at quarterback 7. So I can let someone else in my league take Patrick Mahomes as a second round draft pick because I can go take Justin Herbert in like the 5th or 6th and compete with the same guy, or have at least the range of outcomes to compete with him. And even if I miss on Justin Herbert in the 6th round of the draft, well, you know what I can do is I can throw my 13th round draft pick on Kenny Pickett, and I have quarterback 9, even if Justin Herbert has the same season that he had last year, where he finishes very disappointingly under Daniel Jones. So that's how you should. That's how, well, I shouldn't say you. That's how I'm going to be attacking my fantasy football season for quarterback this year. And like I said, the main one to look at, or the final one to look at, is this year with Justin Fields. Justin Fields won me a fantasy championship last year. I got him off waivers after someone dumped him. Here's the problem with Justin Fields this year. It's his 3rd year in the league, and he needs to improve as a passer. So there's a likelihood that he's going to jump up to, say, we'll be nice and say 3,200 yards passing, because he had 2,200 yards passing, 17 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. Well, from a passing standpoint, he's very similar to Daniel Jones at that point. Well, the other side, we have to look at his rushing, and he did miss time last year. But again, you're looking at having to sacrifice X to get Y. So if you just say he improves as a passer without looking at how it's going to affect his rushing statistics, then you're putting yourself in for a very difficult time, because now Justin Fields, if he has some type of regression in the rushing game, which he likely will if he's having this monumental step forward in the passing game, um, now you're getting to the point where you're drafting Justin Fields 6 as a quarterback 6, but you're actually getting Daniel Jones, because the same game that we play where we go, well, Daniel Jones is going to be 1,000 yards better passing, but we're going to keep the rushing statistics. We could play that game with Justin Fields, but again, like just Jalen Hurts last year, we also have to bake in the other range, which is Justin Fields does become a better passer, which makes him a less efficient runner. So at quarterback 6, like, what is the range of outcomes on Justin Fields? Well, he can finish his quarterback 1 overall, yeah, sure, but he could also easily finish his quarterback 9. I don't want to take that risk when I'm drafting a guy to be quarterback 6, and his range of outcomes is likely to be quarterback 6. So tomorrow, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I'll have to think about it, and then we'll get after it. See you guys later.